Hey boys and girls, this is Bennett. Welcome back to the channel. Before we start, I want to give a special shout out to Stephanie, Matt, and Stathis. You guys are hanging out. You're big supporters of the channel. I appreciate it. You know what you need to do, so go ahead and do it. Don't waste any time. Don't let the grass grow under your feet. In front of us today, guys, we have a box of 1990-91 Skybox Basketball. This one is not newly purchased. This came out of a closet. I have had it since I bought it new in 1991. Yeah. This box, just like most things from this era, don't have a tremendous amount of value. Doesn't have a tremendous amount of value, I should say. But it is of this year's cards. Unlike the Fleer and the Hoops, these cards seem to carry a little bit more value. I think because they're so sort of instantly recognizable. This particular year, Skybox Basketball, everybody knows these cards. The Jordans, of course, will hold the most value by far. The Magics, the Birds, the Elijah Wands, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, Gary Payton has a rookie card in here. Those are the kinds of names we're looking for. There's a lot of cards in here. These are 36 packs, 15 cards a piece. You used to get a lot of cardboard for your money back in the day. You can still find these boxes online. They're relatively inexpensive. And when I say value, when I'm talking about the cards, of course, we're talking about in PSA 10, right? Anything that's not a PSA 10 doesn't really have any value at all because of the overproduction of these. But if you can get a Jordan to 10, you're talking about, $500-600 probably, maybe more nowadays, because the Jordan cards from this era have gotten more and more collectible over time. Now, that said, getting a PSA 10 on a 90-91 Skybox from, I'd say the odds are maybe, 1 out of every 400 cards you submit to PSA. They're just not going to grade them. They're keeping pop counts low, obviously artificially. There's no interest whatsoever in giving 10s out to cards like these. As you can see on these packs, this was the inaugural edition. This Skybox brand didn't make it that long, so it didn't go that long after the inaugural edition, but this was the first year of these cards, which also gives them a certain significance in the hobby. We're going to get into it, and we're going to see if we can't pull some of the big names. I'm a big nostalgia guy, so going through these things, even if there's not any money in them, just really, does my heart good. Obviously, this design, if you know basketball from this era, if you're of a certain age, you're going to recognize it. There's a Ewing. We'll put the guys that we think have some value to the side. There's Manute Bol, Thurl Bailey. There's Jack Sikma. This was I think it was right before Sikma retired. There's J.R. Reed, Derek Gervin, and Billy Thompson. All right, let's keep going. These cards, for being in this box since 90. God, how many years ago is that? Like 35 years. They're in remarkably good shape. They're not bricked up. I mean, part of that's because they don't really have a chromium stock to them. But there's the Dream. But they're in really, really good shape. They really are. Otis Smith, Bob Thornton, Anthony Jones, Terry Cummings. There's a checklist. There's Anthony Webb and William Bedford. For those of you who are a little bit younger, you're only going to probably know the big names. Some of you big fans out there will know these guys. If you're a little bit younger, anybody my age knows all these names because, I think this was my sophomore or junior year of high school. So these, this was right in my wheelhouse. There's Magic. So if you can get one of these, again, if you can get one of these perfectly centered, right, which this one is not, the corners and edges on all of these cards actually look really, really crisp. So, that's a big deal. Maybe I'll submit some of them, but if you can get them centered, you can get them crisp, and you're lucky enough to get a 10, that Johnson's probably a $150 card. Now, again, this is not the kind of box you're trying to get money out of. There's a Rodman. You're opening a box like this, like I am for nostalgia's sake, right? There's the Microwave. There's Joe Dumars. Excuse me, that's Joe Dumars' microwave was Vinnie Johnson. There's Sam Bowie of the Michael Jordan draft infamy. Although, I don't know what Bowie could have possibly done to not have that happen. There's Scotty Brooks, now a coach. Eddie Johnson. There's Herb Williams, Chris Mullin, Bill Cartwright. There's Eric Johnson, no relation. Ricky Green. Tim Hardaway's got some value in this set. There's Dominique, he does as well. There's Purvis Short, and there's Paul Pressey. Still have yet to hit a Jordan, but we're going to keep our eye out for him. I'm really on the fence. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I'm really on the fence about grading anything anymore. Just because you don't really, this is David Robinson, the return is just terrible. And gemming cards that you need to gem, that you really, really, when I say need to gem, right? To have them have any value. The gem rate's so low now compared to what it should be. If you go by PSA's own standards, that, I don't know if it's worth it. There's Chuck Person, but if I do send in another submission, which I'm wrestling with, and I find a Jordan that looks good, who knows? There's Ed Pickney. I think the last time I opened a box from around this time, I talked about Pickney. I was lucky enough to meet Ed Pickney right after he was drafted by the Celtics, but before he went to the pros and played his first year, he came to a basketball or sports camp that I was in, and was a super sweet guy, really nice guy. Ricky Pierce, Wayne Rollins, John Williams, and the last pack of the first quarter of this box. Guys, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope the hobby's treating you well. I hope life's treating you well. There's Kenny Smith of NBA TV now, Mike Sanders, Mike McGee, Larry Drew. There's Bernard King, one of the great scorers in Knicks history. Johnny Newman, had he not hurt himself, who knows? Maybe we talk about Bernard King as one of the greats ever. Because King was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. If anybody is a Knicks fan like me and remembers the early 80s and remembers Bernard King, man, he could take over a game. It's James Edwards, Jeff Sanders, Buck Johnson, Alex English, another great scorer. There's Stockton. Stockton's probably got a little value. Charles Smith and Danny Ainge. Keep going. Come on, Michael, where are you? There's Kurt Rambis. Look at that Rambis picture on Phoenix. Rambis always looked like an angry guy in a bar, didn't he? With those goggles and just that hair. There's Reggie Miller. There's Liddell Eccles. There's Scott Skiles, Derek Smith, Mark Eaton, who's a giant. Rick Mahorn, B.J. Armstrong was not a giant. Jim Peterson, Mike Brown. All right, come on, Michael. It's like when you open stuff, even today, right? There's the microwave. There's Vinnie Johnson. You open stuff today and you can swear they don't put the stars in. I feel like they were doing it back then. Even with as many as they produced, they were holding back Michael Jordan. You'll get 43 Donald Royals before you get a Jordan. There's Kemp, Glenn Rice, LaSalle Thompson, Michael Cooper. There's Clyde the Glide and Joe Barry Carroll. I would like to think we could get a couple of Jordans out of a box like this. I don't know, we'll see. It's funny, if you look these things up, there's Danny Ferry. I got a picture of Ferry. If you look these cards up online and you look up and you try to find a Jordan out of this set, you'll see some of these listed for 12 grand or 15 grand or I don't know, some kind of crazy numbers. I guess because they look gold. And they're trying to sucker in somebody who doesn't know any better. I don't know. Having cards like this listed at that kind of money. And I'm looking at them raw. They're listed for that kind of money. It's a little crazy. There's Barkley, a beast. This is 90-91. So this is as Jordan is now pushing for his first title, right? That's this year. This year would have been the Bulls' first title with Phil Jackson and Jordan, the first of three. Before Jordan retires, I would be making air quotes if I could. And then comes back and wins another 3. There's AC Green, Danny Manning. There's Brian Quinnett and Steve Coulter. Come on, baby. Come on, Michael. Where are you? I was always hiding. It'd be nice if we could just pull Mike out of the first pack. I think he's card number 1. There's Mark Jackson. Scotty's got some value. There's Scottie Pippen. Now we need his teammate. There's Sidney Lowe, Antoine Carr, Dale Ellis, Karl Malone. I hate Malone so much that even though he probably has a little bit of value, I'm not putting him in the pile with the other guys. I don't know how you guys feel about Karl Malone. I mean, can you imagine if Malone played in this day and age with his history, his checkered past, what he did and got away with? And I just, it's really kind of a nasty. If you're not familiar with it, I'm not gonna talk about Karl Malone. I'm not gonna give him the time or my breath. But go look up Karl Malone and who he had kids with and what he did and if he took care of them and what he did as he was entering the NBA and in his time in the NBA. What a great guy. There's Ralph Sampson, part of the Twin Towers out down in college and in the pros, I guess. There's Larry Bird, Craig Elo, Brian Shaw, Mark Aguirre, Olden Polynice. There's Robert Parrish, Ed Neely. Parrish, part of one of the ugliest teams to ever play any sport. You look at those like mid-'80s, in particular mid-'80s Celtics, especially when they added Bill Walton to that team. Oh, what an ugly team. There's Michael. There's Mike. Card looks good. Hey, Mike. It should be card number 41. Yep, there's Mike. That's Worthy and Chucky Brown, Michael Smith, Cliff Livingston, there's Andrew Lang, Orlando Blackman, Mookie Blaylock. Yeah, I mean, it was that team like had Danny Ainge, who was a pretty good-looking guy, right? And then Bird, who was a monster. Kevin McHale, who looked like he was out of a zombie movie. Robert Parrish. Bill Walton was the backup center on that team. Oh, that was one of the ugliest teams in any sport, to play any sport ever. One of the ugliest group of men ever assembled. Wow. They were good. They won. I mean, they were beasts on the court, but man, you got to think that there was something about how ugly they were that helped them. Sort of like, what was his name? There's Reggie Miller. There was a cartoon, Yuck, right? The dog who had the doghouse on his head, and you never saw his face. And when he took the doghouse off, that was like his superpower. He took the doghouse off, and it caused like an earthquake, and people couldn't like stand the sight of him. I feel like the Celtics had some of that going for him in the 80s. There's Hornacek, Johnny Moore, Randy White, the aforementioned Kevin McHale. Is there a picture of him on the back? Look at that. And that's like a glamour shot for Kevin McHale. Let's get Kevin McHale right into your living room. Kevin McHale. There's John Paxson, Bobby Hansen, Larry Smith, Bill Laimbeer is another ugly guy. And there's Isaiah. Put Isaiah down. Isaiah's got some value. It's a kind of a cool card for Isaiah too, right? I like that card. All right, we're a little more than halfway through this box. I appreciate you guys sticking with me. Like I said, I dig these nostalgic breaks. I like opening boxes like this. If you do, please drop me a comment. Let me know you want to see more of these. I'd be happy to. I got a bunch of stuff in hand right now that I can open. Old baseball, old basketball. I don't really have any old football, but I could probably get my hands on some. I got a lot of old baseball and basketball though that I can open, which I think will be cool. Which I'll get to at some point. I just like to mix in the new stuff too. There's Moses Malone. Came out of high school, for those of you who don't know. Grant Long, Jerome Richardson, Brad Davis. There's Reggie Lewis, Jeff Martin, Jerome Kersey. There's James Worthy, Purvis Short. What do we got? We got one Michael, right? We got one Michael out of the first half. Let's get a second Michael out of the second half. That would be fantastic. This pack is tough to open. Maybe, The unfortunate thing about boxes like these, right, about cards like these and print runs, first of all, they were huge. There were also not really any inserts to speak of. There was no numbered, no short printed stuff. And that, even if you had, even if it was a snowball chance in hell of pulling a numbered Jordan out of one of these boxes, can you imagine how much these things would cost? I mean, seriously. You're talking about a box like this would probably cost you $1,500. It's crazy. They don't, obviously. There's another Barkley. But if they did, man, these things would be a fortune. Because those cards would be, for any kind of basketball collector, especially a Jordan collector, any of the short printed stuff from the 90s when they started doing that, even things numbered, out of $9.99, they would number things out of like $4,000. Doesn't matter. Those things have so much value, and they've grown dramatically in the last 5 years. I mean, shot through the roof. And that's one of those markets where a lot of these things have come back to earth, right? We've seen a lot of the modern cards in particular have lost a lot of that, a lot of that sizzle. But the stuff, those inserts, there's the Dream again. Those inserts have really sort of only gone up. It's pretty amazing to watch. So the checklist. All right, we got, 8 or 9 packs left. We got 8 or 9 shots at hitting another Jordan. Love to see it. There's Danny Ainge. There's Byron Scott. Larry Nance. His son's in the NBA now. There's Stacey King. There's Detlef Schrempf. Danny Manning again. Derek Green. Let's keep going. We got Jeff Malone, Mark Price, Michael Holton, Vinnie Johnson, Sedale Threat. Oh, there is Donald Royal, Purvis Ellison. There's another Sean Kemp, Glenn Rice, LaSalle Thompson. If you had to pick a box of cards from this era, from this wax, junk wax basketball era, what are you opening up? Like, what's your, not to make money. You're not trying to make a profit. You're not trying to do anything with it. Just to go through it. What would you look at that would be the kind of thing that would make you happy? If you hit a card, you'd be like, oh, I remember that card. Like these cards I remember vividly. I remember the gold sort of border to these. This is not what basketball cards look like, right? This is the first year that they were doing this, and they tried to do something different, and they did. And you know what? Frankly, these cards, there's Tim Hardaway, there's Wilkins. These cards look, compared to today's standards, right? Or even compared to some of the cards from the mid-90s when card companies started to sort of up their game and understood that, it's got to be more of a premium product to have a shot in the market. These cards were, very different. These cards were nice. And they were, when I first opened these as a kid, there's Karl Malone again, you knew that you were opening something. It was like, these are different. Look at the colors on these things. I mean, cards just didn't look like this, right? They just didn't have these kinds of these kind of colors on them, this kind of border on it. Again, it makes grading them, in particular with this gold border, makes it difficult. It makes it difficult to get any kind of decent grade, especially, again, now that the grading is, well, let's be frank, the grading is, not fair. It's not a balanced grading system. There is no grading system that works. There's Anthony, everybody know his nickname? That's Anthony Spudwebb. There he is on the back. Do they have nicknames? No. How about this? Here's Anthony Spudwebb, and here's William Bedford. There's Michael Adams. Goes by Michael. Eric Floyd goes by Sleepy. Goes by Eric. Get out of here. Goes by Eric. All right, anyway. Chuck Person, Ben Coleman, Roy Hinson. There's Randy Allen, Quentin Daly, Craig Hodges. There's Ed Pickney again. There's Ricky Pierce. All right, we have 2 more shots at hitting another Jordan. We hit 1 Jordan, right? That's it. 1 Jordan out of this whole box. There's another Magic. I feel like we've hit like 4 Magics and 1 Jordan. And not that it's bad to hit 4 Magics, but 1 Jordan. There's Bernard King. Oh, man. I would love to hit more Jordans. Come on. 1 more Jordan. Give us a Jordan. 1 last pack Magic. Give us a Jordan. Here we go. Can't wait. Jordan, Jordan, Jordan. We're going to do it. And here we go. There's Chucky Brown, Michael Smith, Cliff Livingston, George McLeod, Andrew Lang, Joe Wolf, Ronaldo Blackman, Mookie Blaylock, Maurice Cheeks, Harold Presley, Paul McKeskey, and the last card is at Barkley. All right, at least we ended on a Charles Barkley. All right, these are our hits, I guess, but let's just cut to the chase. Let's get back to Mr. Jordan and see what he has to say. What do you think? Looks pretty clean, right? Looks pretty clean. Yeah. I mean, it's maybe a little off, left to right, but they're supposed to allow 60-40 centering. The back looks really clean. Love that he's playing golf in this picture. Cracks me up. You got to think he had something to do with that, right? I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, that's 1990-91 Skybox Basketball. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I appreciate you tuning in. If you have not yet, please consider subscribing to the channel. Certainly hit the like button and drop me a comment. And I'll catch you in the next video.